Welcome to another episode of Conversations with the Candidates. My name is Kevin Tocci, and the idea of the show, it's right in the title. We're having conversations with folks who are running for office in the town of either Whitman or Hanson. It so happens that today's conversation is about school committee, and joining us, we're privileged to have TJ Roffey. Did I say that right?
Yes.
He is a candidate for school committee, and we'll chat with him about his candidacy. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Kevin. Glad to be here.
Let's start out. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, my wife grew up in Hanson. I grew up in Marshfield. Moved to Hanson about 5 years ago, and decided we're going to make our home here. So, we have a young child that'll be going to school in the future. So, interested in trying to help out around the school committee and help out with the public schools.
So this is your first run for an office, but you are somebody who was already kind of committed to serving on a board and a committee now.
Sure. So I'm the chair of the Hanson Conservation Commission. I was a member of the Hanson Master Plan Committee that worked on updating the master plan last year. So trying to help out around town and give back, and you keep Hanson a great place to live.
So what inspired you to run for school committee?
My wife went to Whitman-Hanson schools. Her brother went to Whitman-Hanson schools. Like I said, we have a child that's going to go to Whitman-Hanson schools in the future. And just trying to make sure that public school is going to continue to give kids the resources they need. I grew up in Marshfield. My whole family went to Marshfield Public Schools. I'm a union electrician. My wife works for the VA. We're doing pretty well for ourselves on the strength of public education. Just making sure that the next generation has the same resources to get a quality education and do well for themselves.
Okay, go Rams, right?
Go Rams.
So first, let's talk a little bit about what you feel you would be able to provide as a member of the school committee. What do you feel are some of the tools that you have that you're already kind of honed, serving on a couple of other committees that you can bring and be an asset immediately?
So I've got some experience with the town budget process. Conservation Department has a small budget. We have one full-time employee, one part-time employee. It's nowhere near the same scale, but working through that process, we've done a lot of communicating with state legislators and state senators on projects that are relevant, and I think working with the state is going to be a big goal for me if I get onto the Whitman-Hanson School Committee, to try and increase some of the reimbursements that the school district is getting. So Chapter 70 aid from the state has remained the same per student for the last at least 4 years. And the cost of educating a student has not stayed the same for the last 4 years. Transportation costs have gone up. Legally, the Commonwealth is supposed to reimburse 100% of transportation costs to regional school districts. We haven't got to that 100% yet. The state just hasn't allocated that money. So working with our representatives in Boston to try and get that, I believe the number was about $400,000 that it would have been in this year's budget for transportation alone if we were at 100%. And $400,000 isn't a huge piece of the budget, but that would be $400,000 less that the school committee would have to ask Whitman and Hanson to come up with if it was coming from the state instead.
It's also interesting that you talk about the per pupil, and I know that it has been a couple of years since it has been increased. I want to say that the previous state reps and state senators have asked to increase it. I guess it resets every budget year, but I want to say it might be somewhere around $20, $25, $30 per pupil, and that there have been requests in the past to bump it up to $50, $75, $100 per pupil.
So right now, Whitman-Hanson gets $30 per pupil, and that's what the formula gives them. Whitman-Hanson spends about $18,000 per pupil per year, and there's a pretty big difference between $30 a person and $18,000 a person.
You think it's time for the state, and this is just kind of a rhetorical question, you can answer it if you want, but it seems as though it might be time for the state legislature to reconsider that number for per pupil students when it comes to future budgets.
I would like to see that conversation happen on Beacon Hill. Obviously, I'm not I'm not running for state rep, I'm running for school committee.
100%.
But I would like to have conversations with Representative Sweezy, Representative Cost from Hanson, and Representative Sullivan from Whitman, and work hopefully to get that topic to be something that's more in the limelight.
We're talking budgets here. Both Whitman and Hanson are facing tough financial times. They're seeking Prop 2.5 overrides. Whitman is seeking $2 million. Hanson is seeking $3 million. Where do you kind of stand on these particular efforts?
It's obviously tough financial times for everybody. Whitman and Hanson aren't alone in this situation. Hanover has an override this year. Norwell has an override this year. Easton has an override this year. Duxbury had an override vote already this year. So it's not a specific economic difficulty in Whitman and Hanson that's leading to this. I'd hate to see the towns lose services. I don't want to see firefighters or police officers or the libraries take a hit because we don't have the money to give the town the things that they deserve.
Let's talk about what if the overrides do not pass? What steps, as an advocate for the school committee, do you think it's going to take to manage the budget shortfall?
So I am a candidate for school committee. I'm not currently on the school committee. Right. The people currently serving have created a contingency budget that addresses if the overrides fail. It is about a $2 million hit to the school departments if the overrides fail. It's $940,000 from Whitman and a little over $1 million. Sorry, $940,000 from Hanson, a little over $1 million from Whitman, and you wind up at $2 million. The exact cuts haven't been identified yet. The school committee legally has till June 1st to notify anybody that would be subject to losing their position. They have discussed taking some money out of the curriculum development budget, but then if the overrides don't pass, there will be staff reductions at all 7 schools in the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District.
Okay. Well, how do you see the role of school committee when it comes to its fiscal responsibility compared to providing a quality education?
The primary focus of the school committee and of the school district has to be providing a quality education. They do have to live with the financial realities of there's not an unlimited budget, there's not unlimited state aid, and things cost money. So I would like to make sure that if elected, the school committee is using all of the money they have the most efficient way. Now, I'm not trying to say that anybody is intentionally not doing so. I'm not trying to, what's the word I want to use here? I'm not trying to slander anybody or imply that they are not doing a good job. I think the school committee has a tough job, which is to balance that quality education and fiscal realities and fiscal responsibility. But just to look at things like utility costs or transportation, things where maybe that if things were to be reimagined, you could save a few dollars. And the school committee budget is a lot of money. The school district budget is a lot of money, and you're not going to solve all of that with any one stroke of the pen. But everywhere that we can, if it's save money on the electric bill, save money on the gas bill, whatever the case may be, any place that we can save money and put it into direct service to students, teachers, and paraprofessionals that are helping the kids, I think is a win.
When it comes to cuts, per se, May 17th, you're successful, you're elected, you are part of the fiscal 27 conversation, and we're tough financial times. Again, I'm giving you a hypothetical here. What are the different services, or what are the different things that you would say, absolutely not, I would not want to see this cut over, if this needs to be cut, if we need to eliminate positions, if we need to eliminate programs, then I would be okay with X. And again, I know it's a tough question, but again, if cuts have to be made, what are the ones to you, you're like, these are essential, these might be, this is a want and not a need?
speaking sort of big picture, without, in a hypothetical future, I personally would prioritize the people in the classroom. I think that trying to keep teachers is the number one priority, to keep class sizes down and help kids get the best education they can. So if there needed to be cuts, I would want to start by looking at costs outside of educators. I think the teachers in the classroom work really hard and deserve support, but I think personally I find the teachers to be kind of the most important resource and what should be most prioritized to protect if we had to have cuts.
Okay. I don't know if this is a similar question or not, but what would you say are your top priorities for the school district, and how would you try to work to advance them during your term?
So, top priority goes back to the conversation we had about increasing state aid. I think a lot of people are aware that the state mandates certain programs be offered in schools. So, students that have individual education plans or paraprofessionals, higher support levels, providing those services costs money. The state requires us to provide those services, and the students deserve those services. The state doesn't give us any money for those services. So, you hear the term unfunded mandate for a lot of things, and some of these education things are unfunded mandates, that the state requires us to offer these services and provide these services to the people that need them and who deserve them. But then the state doesn't help us provide those services. So my big fight would be to try and get the state to support the schools more. And again, this goes back to, it's not just a Whitman-Hanson thing. We went over, all the other towns that have overrides this year and are fighting with their school budgets. So it's not going to be solved just by Whitman-Hanson. It's going to have to come from the state, and that would be my number one priority. And then in terms of things in the schools, I would love to see some more, I don't necessarily want to say like modern programs added. I know the school committee's discussed like a robotics program. We don't have currently. Some other public schools do. And I think that's certainly something that would be probably interesting to the students and applicable to the world that we're living in going forward. And I would like to see, in a perfect world, I would like to see the foreign language offerings kind of beefed up to start earlier and cover maybe some more options.
What do you feel like some of the optimum languages that we should be teaching beyond Spanish or French?
So I think Spanish and French both have their place in the curriculum. I don't know about in Whitman-Hanson. I know in the past other school districts have offered American Sign Language. It's been very popular, very well received.
ASL, yeah.
And then, maybe Mandarin or Cantonese, maybe Arabic, or anything that's gonna. There's a big world out there, and the economy works on a global scale at this point. You can't, buy everything in Hanson anymore or in Whitman anymore. So if you can communicate with people outside of Whitman and Hanson, and that's going to help you in the long run. So are we going to be able to do all of that? Not in a single 3-year term, certainly not. But ideally, I would like to get elected and get reelected in 3 years and kind of hopefully find the money and ability to expand these resources for the students.
Okay. Kind of staying on the communication idea, you as someone, if you are successful in being elected, how would you want to communicate with residents, parents, town officials to build trust when it comes to budget decisions or any decisions that are made?
I think one of the big things is that people don't realize how early, particularly with the schools, the budget process begins. That everybody knows we vote on the school budget and the town budget at town meeting in May. The school committee starts their budget discussions in January and February because they're required to send the assessment to the towns before the town meeting warrant can be published. The town meeting warrant has to be published 45 days before town meeting, so that backs you up to the end of March, and the school committee has to have set their budget and voted to approve it before then. So the school committee budget is actually set usually end of February, beginning of March. And I think by the time that process is done and there's an assessment number to the towns, it's kind of too late to change it. So once the school committee votes an assessment, that assessment can't be changed upwards. The school committee can come back and move that assessment down.
Yeah, modify it.
So obviously in March, we don't have hard answers on what the state financial aid is going to be in the overall picture. You know, we have the $30 per student. The transportation costs aren't 100% yet. What we do get for special education reimbursement isn't 100% yet. So they could come back in July and say the assessment's going to go down $2,500 a town or $10,000 a town, whatever it might be. But they have to make sure that the school committee or the school department has the money that is budgeted. They have to make sure that the assessment is at kind of the top line number in March when they vote it. And then by the time that we're in town meeting season, and in this case, you know, in this year's case, override season, you can't really do anything to change the school budget because it's already been set. So I think it would be important to kind of publicize that process as much as possible when it's ongoing.
So you feel the school committee should play a role in getting the word out about the budget process maybe a little bit sooner, especially if there's an implication for an override?
I think the school committee does a good job communicating with the people that are currently in the schools, and I think that they have a harder time communicating with the people that aren't currently in the schools. So everybody that's currently enrolled in the schools is on an email distribution list from the schools, and they get a lot of information from the schools. Anybody that doesn't have a child in the schools isn't on that list. And so there aren't as many ways to necessarily get that information. So I think some of the school committee members try really hard to get that word out, and I would like to see that continue with whoever's elected to continue to serve, that would really try to spread the information they have and the communication they have outside of the people that are currently school parents, so that the town as a whole has a better idea of where the process stands and what's going on.
Okay. So the school committee serves Whitman-Hanson, but it's also, the dynamic is interesting, seeing that there are 6 Whitman school committee, elected school committee members, and there are 4 for Hanson, which sometimes you're going to have a differing point of view when it comes to the finances and priorities. How would you navigate those dynamics to ensure that it's fair and an effective representation for not just Whitman students, but also Hanson?
So mathematical realities of a 6-4 board are that sometimes things can pass along town lines. There was a conversation had, I believe it was in 2024, about implementing a 2/3 majority for some votes at the school committee to ensure that they wouldn't pass 6-4. The school committee decided not to do that. The budget process does still require a 2/3 majority, so you need 7 school committee members to vote for the budget. So at least one member from Hanson has to vote for the budget to get passed. So there is some pull from Hanson as it pertains to the budget, but again, the 2 goals of the school committee are both to provide a quality education and to live in that financial reality. And so if the board members feel that this is the least budget we can work with to provide the same services, then that's the number that they're going to vote for. You know, if you talk to the people that are on the school committee this year that crafted this budget, the budget number went up, the assessment numbers went up, but the services are not. It's a budget that provides the same services. It's just that those things have gotten more expensive. Health insurance costs for the district went up 12% this year. You can't not offer health insurance to the people. There's 680-ish employees across the 7 schools in the district. You can't not offer them health insurance. So the fact that cost goes up 12%, if you're truly going to live in a Proposition 2.5 world where you can only go up 2.5%, then you're just not going to be able to keep doing the same things, because health insurance is going to go up more than 2.5% most years. So I think everybody is conscious of the budget. Nobody wants to necessarily be paying more in taxes, but there is no magic button to press to keep the taxes low and the services the same. And it either has to be fund what you want or get rid of some of the things we have.
You wouldn't have run unless it was you saw something that was exciting about it, and maybe exciting is not the right word, but that you did something that really energized you to want to be a part of this. Well, what is it about wanting to run for this? Is it the new middle school that's going to be built soon? Is it just the thought of being able to help with our children's future?
So the biggest thing is that my wife and I have a young child that we plan to send to Whitman-Hanson Public Schools, and we live in Hanson. My wife's whole family my wife grew up in Hanson. Her whole family still lives in Hanson. We're committed to Hanson. We're committed to the Whitman-Hanson School District. As things stand, I have the time and ability to commit to something like the school committee that is. It's not a small lift. It's long meetings, once or twice a month, and I'll work outside of that people do for free. It's a volunteer process,
right?
And I want to use that energy and opportunity to try and make sure that Whitman-Hanson schools remain a good school district. They provide a quality education now, and I want to make sure they continue to do that, so that my daughter and the other students, her generation, are going to get an education that sets them up to be productive and successful members of society.
I'm going to go back to the dynamic of the board. Do you think that eventually there should be a conversation about modifying the board to more of a 5-5, or do you think that it works the way it is?
So the board is divided based on the student population per the regional agreement.
Right.
Until 5 years ago or so,
they figured out about the statutory.
The bill for the school district was also divided by the population of the student body.
Right.
And I think people had a much easier time living with that arrangement when the two were the same. Hanson's a smaller town. Hanson has a smaller population, sends smaller population to the schools. I don't know that. I think at some point it would probably come up. So there was a regional agreement committee this year that discussed, or is discussing, the regional agreement, and has set timeline for a reanalysis and rediscussion of the regional agreement every, I think it was 5 years. Don't hold me to that. Going forward, so that if there are things that come up with the regional agreement, they won't be necessarily postponed or swept under the rug, that there was a mechanism to take a look at the agreement every set number of years and address anything that comes up.
Modify it.
And maybe in the future that is a change in the division of the seats on the board. Maybe it's a change to the number of the seats on the board so that you couldn't find yourself in a tie situation. It's unusual for elected boards or public boards to have an even number of members because you want to avoid tie votes. So maybe that's something that we look at in the future is, it is a volunteer position, so it isn't really a cost. So maybe the answer is to go to 11 and go 6-5 instead of 6-4. Okay. But that's something that would have to be discussed amongst the regional agreement. Has to be voted on by town meeting make any changes. So that was something that would have to be kind of a town-wide conversation in both towns.
Okay. Let's talk about your long-term vision. If you're elected, what do you have for a vision for the school district beyond this immediate fiscal year?
So, I've kind of hammered the point of working with the state to make sure that the school district is put on a sustainable footing. The cost of public education isn't going to be something that the towns can do by themselves. It isn't now, and it's not going to change. The cost of funding public education is going to require help from the state. And that's not just for Whitman or Hanson. We've talked about the other towns that have overrides this year. There are other regional school districts that are screaming the same message that we need money to make this work. So it's not headline-inducing news, but you need that solid foundation of the money to fund operations for anything else to matter. Beyond that, I would love to continue to look at, we talked about new programs that could be added. Robotics was the one that has been floated, and that's not an original idea to me. That's a conversation that has come up with other people, but that's something that I know for a fact other school districts do offer, and students that are in those programs. My cousin has a kid that is in the robotics program at his public school, and he loves it. It's fascinating, and they build functioning robots and go to competitions. It's not, purely hypothetical. So something like that, I think, would be a great addition to the curriculum if we could do it. And long term, I don't want to say that I could sit here today and tell you in 10 years what that robotics type project would be. That would be a great addition to the curriculum. But I would love to be able to say that we have the ability and the will to add things like that to the curriculum as the opportunities come up.
Okay. We got a couple of minutes left here. And one of the final questions I will ask you, is there anything I haven't asked you in regards to our conversation here but you feel is important to telling the viewers at home today?
So what people may or may not be aware, this is the only really contested race in Hanson. Everybody else is either running unopposed or there's nobody running for office. The other two candidates for school committee are running for re-election. I don't want to disparage the work they've done, but I think the school district could use some new voices and new eyes going forward, and that's why I'm running, and I hope that people support my candidacy.
Okay. Folks want to find out more. If they want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
So there is a Facebook page, TJ Roffey for Whitman-Hanson School Committee, or elect TJ Roffey for Whitman-Hanson School Committee, sorry. Or you can email at committee-to-elect-tjroffey@gmail.com.
Excellent. I want to thank you so much for your time today and being a guest on this show.
I'm glad to be here, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity.
You got it. And we want to thank you at home for tuning into a program like Conversations with the Candidates. The idea is to help you be better informed with the folks who are seeking your vote come May 17th. If you're not sure in regards to your voting status or where to vote or how to vote, contact the town clerk's office. It's that easy. And until our next conversation, have a great day.